Sultan Mehmed IV was born on January 2, 1642, in Constantinople to Sultan Ibrahim I and Turhan Sultan, with his grandmother Kusum Sultan playing a significant role in his early life. Mehmed became Sultan at age 6 in 1648 after his father's execution, orchestrated by Kusum Sultan. As regent, Kusum ruled during a period known as the Sultanate of Women, marked by the influence of royal women and increasing control by the Janissaries, called the Sultanate of the Agas. During this period, the Ottoman Empire faced severe challenges. The Venetians captured Aegean islands like Lemnos and blockaded Constantinople, causing food shortages and riots. Meanwhile, Austria breached treaties by seizing Hungarian fortresses, including Novgorod Castle, and Transylvanian leaders declared independence, weakening Ottoman control in the region. A power struggle ensued between Kusum and Turhan Sultan. Kusum allegedly conspired to poison Mehmed and replace him with his half-brother Suleiman. However, Turhan discovered the plot, and in 1651, Kusum Sultan was assassinated by Turhan's supporters in an epic incident. Turhan then became regent, skillfully managing state affairs. When Mehmed was 9 years old, in 1656, Turhan appointed Mehmed Köprülü Pasha as Grand Vizier, starting the Köprülü era, which ended the Sultanate of Women and the influence of the Janissaries. Köprülü's first major success came with the suppression of the rebellious Sipahi cavalry in January 1657, demonstrating his resolve to end internal unrest. Following this, he turned his attention to the Venetian blockade of Constantinople. Under Köprülü's leadership, the Ottoman navy achieved a decisive victory at the Battle of the Dardanelles in July 1657, reopening crucial sea supply routes and regaining key Aegean islands, including Lemnos. With extraordinary powers granted by Mehmed IV, Köprülü opposed corruption and implemented strict governance. In 1658, he launched a successful campaign against Transylvania, reclaiming territories and solidifying Ottoman dominance in the Balkans. In 1661, Köprülü Mehmed Pasha died at age 86. He was succeeded by his son Köprülü Fazıl Ahmed Pasha. Known for his refined education and sharp intellect, Fazıl Ahmed was well prepared to carry on his father's reforms and military campaigns. In 1663, Köprülü Fazıl Ahmed Pasha led over 100,000 Ottoman troops into Hungary, capturing Esekivar and devastating parts of Moravia. Then in 1664, Köprülü's forces besieged and captured Novgorod Castle. However, on the 1st of August 1664, the Ottoman advance was halted at the Battle of St. Gothard. Despite this, the Peace of Vosva followed, granting the Ottomans control of Transylvania while establishing a 20-year truce. On the 27th of September 1669, after 21 years of siege, the city of Candia finally surrendered to Grand Vizier Köprülü Fazıl Ahmed Pasha, marking the end of the protracted Crimean War. In 1669, Petro Doroshenko, the hetman of the Zaporozhian host, wanted to secure his rule on Ukraine, allied with Sultan Mehmed IV, making the Cossack hetmanate an Ottoman vassal. Meanwhile, the weakened Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth struggled with internal unrest and frequent Tatar raids. John Sobieski repelled Tatar Cossack attacks at the Battle of Podhaj, 1667, securing a truce. However, hostilities reignited in 1670 when Doroshenko allied with Crimea, leading to Ottoman intervention on his side in 1671 and escalating the conflict into war. In 1672, the Ottoman army, led by Sultan Mehmed IV and Grand Vizier Köprülü Fazıl Ahmed, capitalized on the weakened state of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, invading its territories. The Ottomans captured Kamieniec Podolski and forced the Commonwealth to sign the Treaty of Karlowitz, ceding vast lands and agreeing to pay tribute. This humiliating treaty spurred the Polish Sejm to raise an army under Hetman John Sobieski. In 1673, Sobieski achieved a stunning victory at the Battle of Kotin, which boosted Polish morale, but did not end the conflict. Sobieski was crowned King of Poland in 1674, continued the struggle against the Ottomans until 1676. The war concluded with the Treaty of Karlowitz, which allowed the Ottomans to retain Kamieniec Podolski. On November 3, 1676, Fazıl Ahmed Pasha died. In the same year, the Ottomans sought to expand their control over right-bank Ukraine with Petro Doroshenko's support, but faced defeat in 1676 by Russian and Ukrainian forces. In 1677, under Ibrahim Pasha, they besieged Chaiharin, only to be driven back with heavy losses. The following year, Kara Mustafa Pasha led another siege on Chaiharin, which was also repelled. The conflict concluded in 1681 with the Treaty of Bakhchisarai, setting the Dnieper River as the border. By the early 1680s, the Ottoman Empire had reached its greatest extent, but this dominance quickly unraveled. In 1682, the Ottomans supported Hungarian rebels against Habsburg rule, even promising them Vienna. Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa Pasha mobilized a 150,000-strong army, and Mehmed IV declared war. By 1683, the Ottomans besieged Vienna in a massive campaign. However, the siege ended disastrously when a Polish-led relief force, including the famed winged hussars under John Sobieski, crushed the Ottoman forces in a decisive cavalry charge. The catastrophic defeat at Vienna sent shockwaves through the empire. Mehmed IV ordered Kara Mustafa Pasha's execution, but the losses continued. The Holy League captured Buda in 1686, and the Ottomans suffered another disastrous defeat at the Battle of Mohacs in 1687. The failure sparked a widespread mutiny, forcing Mehmed IV to abdicate in favor of his half-brother, Suleiman II. This marked the end of Mehmed IV's 39-year reign and the conclusion of the Ottoman Empire's golden age. He was exiled to the Eden Palace, where he spent the rest of his life until his death in 1693.
The Great Turkish War, the war which changed the balance of Europe. In this journey, we will see about this massive war. Background before the war. In the late 17th century, following Bohdan Khmelnytsky's rebellion, the Tsardom of Russia acquired territories from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Some Cossacks, led by Petro Doroshenko, remained in the southeastern part of the Commonwealth and sought protection from the Ottoman Empire. In 1667, Doroshenko attacked Polish commander John Sobieski. Taking advantage of internal conflicts within the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, Sultan Mehmed IV launched an attack in 1672 on Kamieniec-Podolski, a major city on the border. Despite resistance, the Poles were eventually forced to surrender and sign the Treaty of Karlowitz, ceding Kamieniec and Podolia to the Ottomans. However, upon learning of the defeat, the Polish Sejm refused to pay tribute and rallied under Sobieski's leadership. They achieved victory at the Battle of Zenta in 1673, and Sobieski was later elected King of Poland. Despite Sobieski's efforts to defeat the Ottomans over the next 4 years, the war continued with no clear success for either side. Eventually, the conflict concluded with the Treaty of Karlowitz in 1676, in which the Turks retained control over Kamieniec-Podolski. This Ottoman attack also triggered the start of the Russo-Turkish Wars in 1676, the beginning of the war, and the massive Battle of Vienna. The Ottoman Empire had long sought to capture Vienna due to its strategic importance in controlling trade routes. In preparation for the siege, extensive logistical efforts were made, including repairing roads and bridges and forwarding resources. The Siege of Sightvar in 1566 halted an earlier Ottoman advance towards Vienna, and the city remained unthreatened until 1683. Political tensions were also high, with the Ottomans supporting Hungarian rebels against Habsburg rule, including promising Vienna to them. Despite a 20-year peace, tensions remained high between the Holy Roman Empire and the Ottoman Empire. In 1681 and 1682, tensions escalated between Imre Thököly's forces and the Holy Roman Empire, leading to clashes in northern Hungary. Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa Pasha persuaded Sultan Mehmed IV to authorize the movement of the Ottoman army towards Győr and Komárom castles. The Ottoman army mobilized on January 21, 1682, with war declared on August 6, 1682. A strategic delay occurred, with the Ottoman invasion postponed to avoid launching it in August or September 1682 due to winter approaching Vienna. This delay allowed Vienna time to prepare defenses and form alliances with Poland, Venice, and the Pope. The Treaty of Warsaw in 1683 solidified the defensive alliance between the Holy Roman Empire and Poland, promising mutual support against Ottoman aggression. On March 31st, Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa Pasha declared war on behalf of Mehmed IV, and Ottoman troops began their forward march from Edirne towards Vienna. By May, Ottoman forces reached Belgrade and were joined by Transylvanian and Hungarian armies. Meanwhile, Crimean Tatar troops reinforced the Ottoman army, outnumbering imperial troops near Vienna. Emperor Leopold fled Vienna with his court, while the city's defense relied on Count Ernst Rüdiger von Starhemberg's 15,000 men. The main Ottoman army arrived at Vienna on July 14th, facing off against Starhemberg's forces. King John III Sobieski of Poland organized a relief expedition, departing from Krakow on August 15, 1683. The Lithuanian army, delayed by campaigns in the Hungarian highlands, arrived in Vienna after the city had been relieved. During the Siege of Vienna, a relief army composed of Poles and imperial forces rushed to prepare a response within 6 days. Effective leadership centered around the Polish king, and his heavy cavalry was established despite the multinational composition of the army. The relief army signaled their arrival on the Kahlenberg above Vienna with bonfires, while Jerzy Franciszek Kulczycki successfully infiltrated Turkish forces to inform the relief troops of the joint attack plan. The Battle of Vienna in 1683 was a sprawling conflict that unfolded with strategic maneuvering and decisive engagements. It commenced with the Ottoman army's pre-dawn assault aimed at disrupting the Holy League's deployment. As the Germans, under Charles of Lorraine, countered, heavy fighting erupted, particularly around fortified villages like Neusdorf and Heiligenstadt. Despite Ottoman counterattacks, the imperial forces gained ground, inflicting significant casualties by midday. Simultaneously, Cantacuzino and his clandestine Christian supporters sought to sabotage the Ottoman siege, including abandoning defensive positions like the bridge over the Danube at Brigittenau Island. This move aimed to expose the Ottoman left flank, complicating their operations. The momentum shifted further with the arrival of Polish infantry on the battlefield. They engaged the Ottoman right flank, adding pressure on already strained Ottoman forces. Meanwhile, the Holy League forces, sensing an opportunity, intensified their offensive. The German forces, after facing initial resistance, gradually advanced, encroaching upon the central Ottoman position known as the Türkenschanze. At a crucial juncture, the Polish cavalry, led by King John III Sobieski, and including the legendary Winged Hussars, launched a monumental charge. This cavalry assault, hailed as the largest in history, shattered Ottoman lines and sent shockwaves through their ranks. The Poles' successful penetration of the Türkenschanze threatened the Ottoman command structure, prompting a retreat. As the Ottoman forces began to withdraw, the Holy League cavalry pursued, further disorienting and demoralizing them. The Viennese garrison also joined the fray, amplifying the pressure on the retreating Ottomans. Exhausted and overwhelmed by the relentless assault, the Ottoman forces succumbed to the Holy League's coordinated attacks. Within hours of the decisive cavalry charge, victory was secured and Vienna was defended. The triumphant entry of Catholic officers into the city, notably Louis William, Margrave of Baden-Baden, marked the turning point. Following the dramatic victory in Battle of Vienna on September 12, 1683, a sense of triumph lingered amongst the Holy League forces. The Ottomans, under Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa Pasha, were in disarray. The various German states within the Holy Roman Empire saw an opportunity to weaken the Habsburg grip on power. They resisted calls for a full-scale offensive against the Ottomans, fearing Leopold's dominance if he emerged too victorious. Sobieski, eager to capitalize on the Ottoman defeat, pushed for a renewed offensive. He eventually convinced some German leaders and a smaller Habsburg force to join him. However, by October 6th, when the Polish army reached the vicinity of Parkany, it became clear that a decisive follow-up wouldn't be immediate. The combined Christian forces were tired and depleted after the Vienna campaign. This lull in major engagements would set the stage for the upcoming Battle of Parkany, a clash that would see Sobieski once again face the Ottomans. The Ottoman army, totaling around 150,000 men under Kara Mustafa Pasha, was defeated on September 11, 1683. The main part of the Ottoman forces retreated to the Balkans. A part of the Ottoman army under Kara Mehmed Pasha encamped in Parkany, Hungary, where they were supported by Mehmed IV, a local ruler. Polish forces under Sobieski followed the Ottoman troops to Parkany to destroy them as they retreated. On October 6, 1683, the Polish army reached the environs of Parkany. The army commanders advised caution, suggesting the advanced guards should rest for a day. Instead, Sobieski decided to surprise the Ottoman army by attacking it with his cavalry. On October 7, 1683, a Polish force of around 5,000 under Sobieski advanced in a rather disorganized manner towards the Ottoman positions. Suddenly, a mass of Ottoman cavalry surged forward to attack them. It did not even have the match cords of its muskets lit and was quickly overwhelmed. The surviving dragoons fled back in panic into Sobieski's main force, closely followed by the Turkish horse, and forced the Poles to beat a hasty retreat to the safety of the Imperial Army, which was following several kilometers behind. The Polish army lost around 1,000 soldiers. Only the intervention of the Imperial cavalry prevented the Ottoman troops from causing far heavier losses. On October 8, 1683, Imperial reinforcements totaling 16,700 troops under Charles V, the Duke of Lorraine, joined the Polish army. After defeating the Polish cavalry, Kara Mehmed Pasha was sent 8,000 elite cavalrymen by Kara Mustafa Pasha. The troops of Mehmed IV were waiting for attack orders on the outskirts of Parkany. On October 9, 1683, the Imperial army formed three lines. The Ottoman forces attacked the first line of the Imperial army unsuccessfully and were flanked by the Polish cavalry. The Ottoman forces were defeated and lost about 9,000 men during the battle. In the wake of the Ottomans' crushing defeat at the hands of the Polish-led force at the Battle of Parkany in October 1683, their retreat was nothing short of chaotic. The blame for the loss fell squarely on the shoulders of Kara Mustafa Pasha, the Ottoman Grand Vizier, who was promptly executed by the Sultan, and a new commander, Kara Mehmed Pasha, took charge. This power vacuum and the overall weakened Ottoman position in Hungary allowed the Holy League, a coalition of European powers galvanized by the previous year's victory at Vienna, to seize the initiative. Charles of Lorraine, a highly regarded Habsburg military leader, was entrusted with commanding a substantial army. Estimates range from 38,000 to 43,000 strong. The Ottomans scrambled to shore up their defenses across Hungary, with a particular focus on Buda itself, the garrison of around 7,000 well-equipped soldiers, and was renowned for its sturdiness. The Holy League army, in May 1684, they began their march towards Buda, their morale high and their resolve strengthened by the recent Ottoman setbacks. By June, they had crossed the Danube at Esztergom, a key Ottoman stronghold, which they captured by storm after a fierce battle. Their next target was Pest, Buda's sister city on the opposite bank of the Danube. The Ottomans, unable to effectively defend Pest, resorted to a scorched earth tactic, setting the city ablaze before abandoning it to the approaching Habsburg forces. Finally, with Buda in sight and having shed some troops due to attrition, estimates suggest the army was now around 34,000 strong. The Holy League prepared to lay siege to the formidable Ottoman fortress, a siege that would prove to be a pivotal moment in the long struggle between the Habsburgs and the Ottomans for control of Hungary. In May 1684, an army of 43,000 men marched under Charles V, Duke of Lorraine, to capture the city of Buda from the Turks. The siege. On 30th of June, the imperial main army entered the city of Pest, to which the Turks had set fire shortly before. After the army crossed the Danube at Vach, it began the siege of Buda, which was defended by approximately 7,000 Turks. The imperial army of 34,000 men began the bombardment of Buda's fortress with 200 cannons on 14th of July, 1684, the anniversary of the beginning of the Siege of Vienna. On 19th July, imperial forces took control of the lower part of the town of Buda. However, since too few troops were available to occupy it, Ernst Rüdiger ordered the houses in that part of the town burned down. Throughout July and August, the imperial army made several attempts to attack the fortress, but all were repelled by the Turkish defenders. On 11 September, an imperial auxiliary corps reached Buda, providing new momentum to the campaign. On 22 September, a Turkish relief army arrived and attacked the besieging forces. The imperial army managed to repel them, but was unable to defeat them. The Turkish relief army then engaged imperial troops in repeated nuisance attacks, which, coupled with losses caused by the Turkish city garrison, caused a plunge in morale. Ernst Rüdiger, who was severely wounded and facing sustained criticism from his army, had to be replaced. The final blow was a spell of poor weather conditions throughout October, and the decision was made to withdraw. On 30th of October, the imperial army withdrew after a siege that had lasted 109 days. The Great Turkish War, the war which changed the balance of Europe. In this journey, we will see about this massive war. A new Holy League was initiated by Pope Innocent IV in 1684, which included the Holy Roman Empire, led by the Habsburg Monarchy, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and the Venetian Republic. Russia joined the alliance in 1686. Mauryan War. Background. Venice held several strategic territories in the Aegean and Ionian Seas after the Fourth Crusade, but lost most of them, including Cyprus and Euboea, to the Ottomans by the 16th and 17th centuries. A prolonged war from 1645 to 1669 over Crete. During the 17th century, despite signs of decline, such as economic issues and declining military quality, the Ottomans remained a dominant power, sustaining their empire through reforms and capable administration. Venice, despite its declining power and resources depleted by the Cretan War, declared war on the Ottomans in 1684, joining the Holy League. The Venetian military, though meager, managed to maintain naval superiority. The Republic aimed to strike Ottoman territories, supported by substantial subsidies from Pope Innocent IV and alliances with various European states. Francesco Morosini led the Venetian expeditionary force, bolstered by mercenaries and allied contributions, setting sail in June 1684 to unite with forces in the Ionian Islands. Siege Campaign. In 1684, General James Leslie, a Scotsman serving the Habsburg Imperial Army, captured the town of Virovitica in the Croatian-Slavonian theater, establishing it as a base for further incursions into Slavonia. In August 1685, Leslie launched another campaign deeper into Ottoman-held Slavonia, targeting the strategic town of Osijek. On August 9th, Leslie's army advanced towards Osijek, but progressed slowly due to the summer heat. Captain Gaspar Balog's vanguard of 500 cavalrymen quickly captured Miholjak. By August 12th, Leslie's main army reached the Karasika River, where they learned of nearby Ottoman forces. Leslie used deceptive maneuvers to create the illusion of a larger army. A skirmish ensued, with Croatian cavalry inflicting losses on the Ottomans, who ultimately retreated to Osijek. On August 13th, Leslie's army reached Osijek and set up a large camp to intimidate the Ottomans. In the ensuing battle, Croatian cavalry attacked and routed the Ottoman flanks, forcing their troops to retreat inside Osijek. The next day, Leslie's forces continued reconnaissance and destroyed local infrastructure, including the wooden Suleiman Bridge over the Drava River. Siege of Buda, 1686. Background. Following the Ottoman failure in the Second Siege of Vienna, Emperor Leopold I sought to counterstrike and reclaim Hungary, aiming to regain Buda from the Ottomans. With support from Pope Innocent I, the Holy League was formed on March 5, 1684, comprising King Jan Sobieski of Poland, Emperor Leopold I, and the Republic of Venice. However, their initial attempt to seize Buda ended in defeat, as the Austrians and their allies had to retreat with significant losses after a 108-day siege. The siege. In 1686, 2 years after the unsuccessful first siege of Buda, a renewed campaign was started to take the city. This time, the Holy League's army was much larger, consisting of 65,000, 100,000 men. On June 12th, long columns departed along both banks of the Danube. 4 days later, they arrived near Buda, where engineers built bridges and soldiers dug trenches to cut the city off from Ottoman lines. Inside Buda, Ottoman commander Abdi Pasha rallied his Janissaries and Sipahis to defend the city. Buda's central feature, Buda Castle, was surrounded by higher and lower towns, with the latter still showing damage from a previous siege despite repairs. The Allied army seized the empty pest across the Danube and dug trenches, facing occasional artillery fire and skirmishes from Ottoman forces. On June 21st, Allied batteries began bombarding the lower town, creating breaches within 2 days. The Bavarians launched the first assault on June 24th, meeting little resistance as most of the Ottoman garrison had fortified themselves in the upper city. The Allies focused their efforts on Buda Castle and the fortified High Town. Using Pest as a base, they seized St. Gellert's Hill and bombarded Ottoman positions with heavy artillery. The Ottomans tenaciously defended Buda, withstanding daily concentrated attacks. They employed a tactic of sending vanguards to engage the attackers while constructing palisades, leading to brutal close combat upon the Allies' retreat. Despite high casualties, the Allies persisted. A lucky mortar strike on an Ottoman powder magazine killed 1,000 defenders. But Abdi Pasha refused to surrender. The siege continued with the Allies suffering heavy losses during a July skirmish. Dissent among Ottoman lines led the Duke to send another emissary for surrender. But Abdi Pasha could not capitulate without risking his life. In mid-August, the Duke learned of an approaching Ottoman army under command of the Grand Vizier, Suleiman Pasha. He led his cavalry and infantry to meet them, resulting in a decisive battle where the Ottomans were flanked and massacred. Returning to the trenches, the Duke displayed captured Ottoman standards, hoping to demoralize the defenders. But they remained resolute. Reinforcements arrived on August 30th, and the Allies prepared for a final assault. On September 2nd, the Allies executed a strategic feint by appearing to retreat from Buda. This maneuver lured the Ottoman defenders into a false sense of security. As the Ottomans relaxed their vigilance, the Allies, with their artillery primed and ready, launched a sudden and coordinated assault on the city's gates. The overwhelming numerical superiority of the Allied forces, combined with the exhaustion and dwindling morale of the Ottoman defenders, allowed them to rapidly breach the initial lines of defense and push up the steep slope of the city hill. The assault was marked by intense and brutal fighting. Despite strict orders from the Duke and Elector of Bavaria to spare any surrendering prisoners, the chaos and ferocity of the battle led to a grim slaughter. The Allies advanced through the city, and many defenders, caught between the advancing forces and their own dwindling numbers, were killed as they attempted to resist or flee. During the final stages of the battle, Abdi Pasha, the Ottoman commander, made a last stand at the breach. He fought valiantly with his scimitar in hand, refusing to retreat or surrender. His determined defense was a testament to his courage, but it ultimately proved futile against the relentless Allied assault. Abdi Pasha met his end bravely, dying on the breach as the Allies overwhelmed the city's defenses. Ultimately, the Allied victory ended 145 years of Ottoman rule in Buda.
After Buda's fall in 1686, saw both the Habsburg and Ottoman empires enter a period of intense preparation for the upcoming spring campaign, while the Habsburgs capitalized on the winter lull by bolstering their forces with mercenaries and rigorous training. Their ambitions extended beyond territorial gain. Emperor Leopold transformed the conflict into a crusade, imbuing it with religious fervor. Conversely, the Ottomans grappled with a severe financial crisis. Despite imposing new taxes and utilizing the imperial treasury, their ability to field a formidable army was hindered by a reliance on hastily levied, untrained troops. The toll of the previous year's battles had been so devastating that the Ottoman Empire, for the first time in its history, sought peace with its adversaries, a plea that went unanswered. With the arrival of spring in 1687, the Habsburgs initiated their offensive. A combined force of over 50,000 troops, led by the Duke of Lorraine and the Elector of Bavaria, converged on a siege in Croatia. Suleiman Pasha, the Ottoman commander based in Belgrade, responded by marching his 60,000-strong army to relieve the besieged city. Successful in driving back the imperial forces, he pursued them northward. The confrontation culminated at Najaharsani, a site imbued with historical significance for both empires. It was here, in 1526, that the Ottoman conquest of Hungary had begun with the catastrophic Battle of Mohacs, resulting in the kingdom's collapse and the subjugation of its people. The choice of Najaharsani as the battleground was a stark reminder of past triumphs and defeats, elevating the stakes of the impending clash. Battle of Mohacs. The Duke and Elector anticipated a decisive battle near Najaharsani. Despite the rugged terrain, he ordered his right and center flanks to move to Siklos, leaving the Bavarians to protect Najaharsani. Unbeknownst to them, Sari Suleiman Pasha noticed the imperial army's movements and prepared to attack the isolated Bavarian wing, nearly 5 kilometers away from the Duke's main force. The Ottoman right flank, composed mainly of cavalry, swerved right while the left flank, consisting of infantry, charged the Bavarians. A contingent of 5,000 Sepahists aimed to outflank the stationary Bavarians. Maximilian deployed his army into lines and sent messengers to the main imperial force. Eugene of Savoy, leading a small cavalry contingent, turned back to assist the Bavarians. Meanwhile, Louis William, Margrave of Baden-Baden, quickly rallied a cavalry force to counter the Ottomans. News of the Ottoman attack reached the Duke of Lorraine, who initially hesitated to respond. After much convincing, he turned his army around, but the Bavarians continued to fiercely resist the Ottoman assault. Suleiman Pasha, aware of his troops' inexperience, ordered a retreat and began an artillery duel, allowing the Duke's army to regroup west of Najaharsani. Maximilian urged Charles to launch a counterattack. Frustrated by the Duke's reluctance, Maximilian and Louis decided to act independently, forcing Charles to eventually support them. The Ottomans launched another assault on the Bavarian flank. Despite the Duke's slow progress through dense woods, some of his troops managed to reinforce the Bavarians. In the ensuing battle, Eugene led his cavalry, pushing the Janissaries back towards their barricades. Louis' cavalry pushed back the Sepahists, creating a pincer movement that trapped the Janissary infantry. Many Ottoman soldiers broke and fled, hindered by the marshy terrain and rivers, resulting in heavy casualties. The Imperial army suffered under 3,000 casualties, while the Ottomans lost around 8,000 killed or wounded and 2,000 captured. The imperial forces seized 78 artillery pieces, 56 flags, and 5,000 muskets. The defeat at the Battle of Mohacs sent shockwaves through the Ottoman Empire, highlighting the state's instability. After a failed counterattack, the Grand Vizier's army mutinied in Petrovaradin. Suleiman Pasha fled to Istanbul, followed by angry troops. This led to a widespread mutiny, culminating in the execution of the Grand Vizier and the deposition of Sultan Mehmed IV, who replaced by his brother Sultan Suleiman II. The mutiny lasted until April 1688. The Habsburg leadership capitalized on the turmoil within the Ottoman state, advancing in a lightning campaign and capturing key cities and strongholds, including Isiek, Petrovaradin, and Eger. In December, the Hungarian Diet elected the Habsburgs as hereditary kings of Hungary. Mauryan War. Operations in western Greece 1684. Venice initiated its campaign against the Ottoman Empire by targeting Lefkada Island. Despite an initial failed attempt, Venetian forces successfully captured the island's fortress. Building on this victory, Venice conquered the mainland region of Acarnania with the aid of local Greek rebels. Strategic coastal strongholds were seized, disrupting Ottoman supply lines. However, the campaign was hindered by disease and heavy losses, prompting Venice to seek reinforcements through alliances with Saxony and Hanover. Conquest of the Morea 1685–87. In 1684, the Maniots in the Peloponnese revolted against Ottoman rule due to lost privileges and heavy taxation. They sought Venetian aid, which was initially delayed. The Ottomans responded by reinforcing their troops and invading Mani. Despite initial Venetian support, the Maniots were eventually forced to surrender. In June 1685, the Venetian army landed at Corinth and besieged the fortress, facing resistance from Ottoman forces. After a successful siege and the surrender of Corinth, the Maniots renewed their revolt. The Venetians then targeted Kalamata, defeating the Ottoman forces and capturing the city. In 1686, Venice launched a decisive campaign to conquer the Peloponnese from the Ottomans. Led by Morosini and Knigsmark, Venetian forces swiftly captured key cities like Navarino and Modin. The capture of Nauplia was a turning point, establishing a strong base for further operations. Despite Ottoman resistance and disease, the Venetians, aided by mercenaries, successfully expanded their territory, shattering the myth of Ottoman invincibility and inspiring hope among the region's people.
After the disaster in Battle of Mohacs in 1687, the Ottoman Empire suffered several major defeats at war with the Holy League, which significantly contributed to development of the crisis that resulted with the deposition of Sultan Mehmed IV to advance into Ottoman territory. The Holy League decided to use this crisis to attack the Ottoman Empire. One of the main goals was the capture of Belgrade, one of the strongest Ottoman strongholds in Europe at that time. The Holy League's forces advanced toward Belgrade from two directions, along the river Sava under Emperor Leopold I, and along the river Danube under Elector Maximilian II Emmanuel. Yegan Osman, leading the Ottoman forces, initially moved from Belgrade to Zabak and Grudiska to prevent Leopold's army from crossing the Sava. Hasan Pasha remained in Belgrade awaiting Rinf. However, upon learning that Leopold's army had crossed the Sava, Yegan Osman returned to Belgrade. The Holy League army under the command of Maximilian II Emmanuel and Prince Eugene of Savoy reached 34,000, including 7,000 Bavarians and 5,000 German soldiers. The Ottoman army under the command of Yegan Osman, 25,000 to 30,000 soldiers. On July 30, 1688, Maximilian began moving his forces by capturing an Ottoman outpost near Title. Yegan Osman positioned his troops around Belgrade to prevent the escape of its garrison and, supported by the Christian population of Ottoman Serbia, Maximilian's forces landed on Ada Ciganlija, a river island near Belgrade, and positioned pontoon bridges. On August 7th, 500 Austrian soldiers crossed under artillery fire and established a foothold, soon joined by 10,000 supporting forces. Despite attacks from Jägernosmon, the Austrians gained ground and besieged Belgrade for nearly a month. On August 10th, Jägernosmon rejected an offer from Emperor Leopold I to switch sides, demanding all of Slavonia and Bosnia instead. On September 6, Maximilian ordered an assault on Belgrade after rejecting an offer of surrender. Despite initial hesitation, captured the city, losing 4,000 men, while the Turks lost 5,000. The fall of a fortified and important city like Belgrade negatively affected the rest of the Ottoman cities in the region, and morale was low. The doors were open to the Holy League, which did not miss an opportunity. After Belgrade, the Crusader army conquered the cities of Smederevo and Golubac and penetrated the lands of the Serbs until it reached the city of Niš in 1689. After seizing the city of Niš, the road became open to the city of Sofia, and then the city of Aydın. The Ottoman Sultan Suleiman II decided to lead the Ottoman army himself. But when he arrived with his army to the city of Sofia, he learned that Niš had fallen into the hands of the Holy League. There was unrest in the army, and signs of disobedience appeared, so the Sultan returned to Istanbul, ignoring the Austrian advance. As soon as he returned to the capital, the Sheikh of Islam began advising him to appoint Fadıl Mustafa Pasha as the Grand Vizier, as he was from the Albanian Köprülü family, known for its strength, strictness, and wise leadership of the state. The Sultan accepted the opinion of the Sheikh of Islam and appointed Fadıl Mustafa Pasha as Grand Vizier in 1689. This move changed the balance of the war. The new Grand Vizier Fadıl Mustafa Pasha began to take measures to regain control of the state. The first thing he did was cancel the unfair taxes that were imposed on the people. After that, he dismissed the Janissary leaders and prevented them from interfering in political affairs. After ensuring the stability of the internal front, he started gathering troops in Aydın to lead them himself. While he was gathering the army, something happened that was considered a rescue for the Ottoman Empire. France declared war on Austria, starting the 9 Years' War. This forced the Habsburg Monarchy to leave the Ottoman front and redirect the bulk of their army towards the Rhine to repel the French attack. This made it very easy for the Ottoman army. Under the leadership of the Grand Vizier Fadıl Mustafa Pasha, they were able to regain the cities of Niš, Golubac, Smederevo. Belgrade was then recaptured by the Ottomans in November 1690. However, winter came, so the Grand Vizier Fadıl Mustafa Pasha returned to the capital victorious after regaining some lost lands in Serbia. He began preparing for a second campaign to reclaim Hungary. However, Sultan Suleiman II died in June 1691, and because he had no son, his brother Sultan Ahmed II became the new Sultan. The Ottomans suffered a series of defeats against the Austrians in the 1680s, most notably at the Battle of Vienna in 1683, Buda in 1686, Battle of Mohacs, and Belgrade in 1688. However, with the beginning of the 9 Years' War in the West, the early 1690s were to see an end to Habsburg conquests in the Balkans and a partial Ottoman recovery, encouraging the Ottomans, led by the Grand Vizier Köprülü Fazıl Mustafa Pasha, to counterattack. In April 1690, Sultan Suleiman II to nominate Hungarian Emmerich Thakaly Prince of Transylvania. Thakaly, at the head of an army, quickly occupied much of the principality. When the imperial army left Belgrade to defeat Thakaly in September, Köprülü managed to retake Belgrade and massacre the garrison, which the Ottomans had lost in 1688. In August 1691, Ludwig Wilhelm downed the Danube to provoke the Ottomans into another major battle. After gathering a new imperial army of 33,000, including a 10,000-strong Serb militia, the Battle of Slankamen. The clash between the two forces took place on the west side of the Danube, opposite the outlet of the Tisza. Both armies deployed near Zemun, but the superior Ottoman army did not attack for 2 days. The Ottomans lacked the vital Tatar component of their army, which was still traveling south. By withdrawing slowly to a fortified position near Slankamen, the army commanders urged the Grand Vizier to attack the alliance. So the Grand Vizier heard their suggestion. The Ottomans followed and surrounded the imperial army. By the 19th of August, the Ottoman cavalry finally attacked. However, although huge, the Ottoman forces were poorly armed and no match for the firepower of Ludwig Wilhelm's German-Austrian infantry and field guns. Additionally, the Ottoman supply system was incapable of waging a long war on the empty expanses of the Pannonian Plain. Initially, the Ottomans were at an advantage, as they advanced and burned 800 supply wagons of the imperial army. Ludwig Wilhelm, in a desperate situation, broke out of his position, besieged by the Ottomans, and turned their flanks with his cavalry, inflicting fearful carnage. After a hard battle, the 33,000-man imperial army was victorious over the larger Ottoman force. The Prelude Fazıl Mustafa Pasha, killed in action during mid-battle, caused the Ottoman morale to drop, and the army to disperse and retreat. The Battle of Slankamen was the last battle in the war that could have brought it back in Ottomans' favour. The Austrians took Transylvania, but were not able to press their advantage, as they had gotten involved with France. Crimean Campaign 1687 to 1689 AD. Russia launched two military campaigns against the Crimean Khanate during 1687 to 1689 as the part of war with the Ottoman Empire. Aiming to secure its southern border, the Crimeans defeated the Russians bravely. Despite large armies, both attempts ended in failure due to logistical issues and tactical errors. While unsuccessful in their primary goal, these campaigns diverted Ottoman and Crimean forces, aiding Russia's allies. The Austrian army began to besiege the city of Belgrade, and Venice also began to attack the island of Crete and the islands in the Aegean Sea. The Ottoman army marched towards the Austrian army, who were besieging Belgrade. The Ottomans defeated them. Morale began to rise again within the Ottoman Empire, but Venice was able to occupy the island of Chios in the Aegean Sea. Sultan Ahmed II was struck with grief and died in February 1695, and Sultan Mustafa II, son of Mehmed IV, was appointed as the new Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire, once a formidable force in Europe, faced significant setbacks during a series of crucial battles. The Battle of Vienna in 1683 marked the beginning of their decline, where they suffered a decisive defeat that halted their advance into Europe. This was followed by the Siege of Buda in 1686, where the Ottomans were driven out of Hungary after more than 140 years of occupation. The Battle of Mohacs in 1687 further weakened their position, as the Christian forces delivered another crushing blow. The tide turned definitively against the Ottomans with the Battle of Slankamen in 1691, where their losses were irreparable. These defeats, compounded by the death of Sultan Ahmed II in 1695, marked a significant turning point in the Ottoman Empire's military fortunes, signaling the beginning of their long decline in the face of a resurgent Europe. In 1695, the Elector of Saxony, Augustus the Strong became the commander of the Habsburg forces. However, the young and inexperienced commander proved to be a poor choice for the Habsburg Monarchy. The Ottoman Empire, under its new Sultan Mustafa II, defeated the Venetians in the decisive Battle of the Oinices Islands 1695 and in the Battle of Chios in February 1695. In the summer of 1695, Sultan Mustafa II personally led the Ottoman army and captured Lipovo. He also defeated the Imperial Army in the decisive Battle of Lugos on September. With the onset of winter, Sultan Mustafa to return to the capital. Meanwhile, in the same year, Peter the Great, Tsar of Russia, launched an attack on the city of Azov. However, the Crimean forces stationed in the city successfully repelled the Russian attack, defending this strategically important city. The campaign lasted from the summer of 1695 until September of that year. In April 1696, Sultan Mustafa II embarked on his second military campaign against Austria. On August 26, 1696, after learning that Sultan Mustafa II's relief army was crossing the Danube and moved to confront the Ottoman army, the ensuing battle near the Bega River ended in a draw, with both armies retreating, thus suffering heavy casualties. Strategically, the Ottoman campaign was a success, as it achieved its goal of retaining Temsva. The Ottoman army also defeated the Austrians in the Battle of Zenta. However, the onset of winter once again forced Sultan Mustafa II to return to the capital. In the spring of 1696, Peter the Great launched his second campaign against Azov, determined to secure a crucial gateway to the Black Sea and establish Russia as a maritime power. Unlike the previous year's failed attempt, this campaign was meticulously planned, with the strategic inclusion of a newly constructed navy playing a pivotal role. The combined efforts of the land and naval forces led to an intense and fierce assault on the fortress. Despite brave and determined resistance from both sides, the Russian forces ultimately emerged victorious, capturing Azov by July. This hard-won victory was a significant achievement for Russia. As the conflict continued into 1697, Augustus had stepped down from his command that same year to pursue the throne of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, leaving a leadership vacancy. Eugene stepped in to replace him, marking his first truly independent command. The victories of the past 2 years had emboldened Sultan Mustafa II, leading him to take the offensive in 1697. He departed from Eden in April for what was considered his third military campaign, commanding an estimated force of 60,000 to 100,000 soldiers. This massive Ottoman army reached Belgrade on August 11th, where they were met by Eugene's forces, numbering around 70,000. However, Eugene's situation was far from ideal. By July, supplies were critically low, with provisions and arms sufficient for only about half of his troops. To make matters worse, several contingents of imperial soldiers had to be diverted to suppress minor revolts, such as the one led by Mehmed IV in Transylvania. Holding the army together under such conditions was a remarkable achievement in itself. Eugene was supported by capable commanders like Guido Starhemberg, but despite their efforts, the Viennese court issued strict orders for Eugene to remain on the defensive. Upon receiving information about the movements of the Ottoman forces, Eugene made the strategic decision to concentrate most of his available troops around Petrovaradin, a town located north of Belgrade. By the time this maneuver was completed, he had around 50,000 soldiers under his command. Meanwhile, Mehmed IV advised Sultan Mustafa II to march toward Transylvania rather than north, a suggestion the Sultan accepted, directing his forces toward the Habsburg-held in Transylvania region. On September 10th, the Ottomans reached the river Tisa, and began fording it the next day. Despite the engineers' superb work, crossing such a river with a large army was a slow and risky process, effectively splitting the army into two vulnerable halves during the crossing. Thanks to the accurate information provided by his scouts, Prince Eugene was fully aware of the Ottoman army's actions and location. He recognized this as the perfect moment to deliver a decisive attack against the divided Ottoman forces. Unlike the Ottomans, who were largely unaware of their enemy's proximity, Eugene's army was well informed. Had the Ottomans known just how close Eugene's forces were, they likely would not have attempted to ford the river. Despite receiving strict orders from Emperor Leopold I to avoid any risky offensives, Prince Eugene decided to act against the larger Ottoman forces.